Good evening. Welcome to NTD News. I'm Paul Graney. Here are today's top stories. Ports, shipping companies, and retailers all getting busy during the holidays, but the White House and industry leaders say goods are moving faster and more efficiently. They don't seem worried about supply chain issues. And Americans don't have to worry about paying their federal student loans, at least till May next year. President Biden extending the pause on such loan repayments again. And the FDA authorizing the Pfizer COVID pill for emergency use. We tell you what the studies are saying and who can take them. New York City is taking big steps towards slowing down the climate crisis. But is it really a crisis? NTD talks to an environmental and energy expert to see what the changes mean for residents and the environment. And Mayor Bill de Blasio also confirming that New Year's Eve celebration at Times Square will take place as scheduled, but likely with additional safety measures. Were you able to buy everything you wanted this holiday season? President Biden says he wants to do more to mitigate supply chain disruptions and reduce prices. So let's take a look at how the ports and the logistics companies are doing. NTD's Allison Lee has the details.
Hello, folks. How are you?
Industry leaders briefed President Biden on Wednesday about the current supply chain situation. The port envoy of the White House Supply Chain Disruptions Task Force paints an optimistic picture. He says goods are moving more quickly and efficiently at the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles.
The number of long-dwelling containers, the ones that have been there 8 days or more, has been cut in half. At the Port of Long Beach since mid-October, the dwell times for those containers has dropped from 12 days to 5 days. That's 140% improvement. And in Los Angeles, from 9 days to 4 days, 125% improvement.
The CEO of FedEx also suggests his company can handle the flow of goods this holiday season. He says the company moved 100 million packages the first weekend of the peak season after Thanksgiving. FedEx had 24 major expansions this past year.
We processed approximately 52,000 employment applications online, of course, these days in May the 8th, that week. Over the last few weeks, we've exceeded 111,000 applications. So that's beginning to open up the supply chain.
Biden says he plans to mitigate supply chain problems by focusing on ports, freight rail, and truck drivers, and making sure more goods are produced in America.
We can and we will address prices by expanding productivity capacity in our economy so we move more goods to market, get more Americans working, encouraging more investments in innovation, and making sure American consumers see those benefits at the store and at the pump.
Later this week, the Biden administration will announce $230 million in grants to ports nationwide. Allison Lee, NTD News.
And millions of Americans now have until May of next year to restart paying back their federal student loans. The president is extending the pause on student loan repayments for another 90 days. Biden says that millions of student loan borrowers are still coping with the impacts of the pandemic and need more time before resuming payments. He says this is an issue Vice President Harris has been closely focused on and one we both deeply care about. When Biden first came into office, he asked the Department of Education to pause federal loan repayments through September 2021. He later extended the pause to the end of January of next year. Now, borrowers have until May 1st, 2022 to start repaying their loans again. This will impact around 41 million Americans. And the Food and Drug Administration has authorized the first pill to treat COVID-19. Pfizer's antiviral pill Paxlovid is now authorized for high-risk adults and children 12 and older. Studies show it reduces the risk of hospitalizations and death by 88% if given within the first 5 days of symptoms. A 5-day course of the drug includes 3 pills twice a day. The government says it will buy 10 million treatments for $5 billion. Pfizer says it can start delivering it right away. And we're just a few days away from Christmas, and Americans are forming long lines to get tested for the CCP virus. Some plan to visit families, so they want to be sure it's a good idea. Others just want to know whether they've been affected. NTD's Miguel Moreno gives us a bird's eye view.
In New York City, these people are lined up to get tested for COVID-19. This is just one of many such lines on the East Coast. Take a look at this drive-through testing center in New Jersey. You could find yourself waiting in these lines for up to 4 to 5 hours. Washington has lines of its own. This one just keeps going and going and going. Some are getting tested ahead of their holiday travels, and others are getting tested just to know whether they're infected. Dr. Anthony Fauci says vaccines are the best defense.
If you are going to be going to a function, a dinner, and you're vaccinated, hopefully, and boosted, but you want to go the extra step, the extra mile to make sure that the people that you are in a setting with, hopefully all of whom are vaccinated and boosted, you want to go that extra step, you should do that.
The CDC has encouraged testing before gathering for the holidays. Before issuing this recommendation, the agency had generally advised people to get tested only if they have symptoms or had close contact with an infected person. Now, some Americans can't find at-home test kits in stores. The supply chain bottlenecks are also contributing to the scarcity of at-home test kits. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
And the University of California has announced a booster mandate for all students and staff. California's governor also mandating booster shots for healthcare workers amid rising Omicron cases. Here's NTD's Eiling Ang with more.
On Monday, Governor Gavin Newsom announced extended hours at testing sites and free at-home test kits for every K-12 student returning to public school.
And so we'll be sending out, we are ordering 6 million tests, no charge. And we're going to be sending those out to our partners all up and down the state to allow for priority access for at least 1 to 2 tests before our kids come back into school, so they have access to antigen tests and or PCR tests, but primarily antigen tests, so that they can get those results back quickly. And make sure
on Tuesday, Newsom announced mandatory COVID-19 booster shots for healthcare workers. The University of California mandated booster shots for all faculty, staff, and students. In a letter sent to chancellors at the 10 UC schools statewide, UC President Michael Drake asked that all eligible community members get a booster. He called for each campus to develop a plan for a January return to campus that mitigates public health impacts, including remote instruction. Campuses are to remain fully operational and should not be holding any large gatherings. In response, many UCs announced that all classes will be held remotely for at least the first week. UC Davis requires a booster or exemption submitted by the end of January. California State University also announced plans to require boosters. San Jose became the first city in the state to mandate boosters for city employees.
And secondly, that access to public facilities, major gathering spaces like the SAP Arena and the Convention Center and many of our public theaters will also require proof of having received a booster shot.
Residents have mixed feelings about the new mandate.
Off the top of my head, I think for employees it's fine, but for visitors it seems like much.
As a resident and an employee at the city, I think it is perfectly fine. I already have had my booster since October, so I think it's perfectly good, making the city safer.
People need to have a choice. And so I would say no, because I'm not getting the booster. I had the COVID shots, the 2.
According to the statewide vaccination data, about 70% are fully vaccinated and 42% have received a booster. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
And a California judge has ruled in favor of a lawsuit that sought to challenge a school district's student vaccine mandate. But the school district is now seeking to appeal the case. We hear more from NTD's Cynthia Kai.
The San Diego Unified School District announced Tuesday that it's seeking to appeal a court ruling in a lawsuit challenging its vaccine mandate for students. SDUSD initially planned to enroll students ages 16 and up who are not fully vaccinated for COVID-19 in independent study on January 24, 2022. However, Let Them Choose, a group of local families, filed a lawsuit back in October. On Monday, San Diego Superior Court Judge John S. Meyer ruled the school district's mandate contradicts state law.
We are thrilled that the court ruled in our favor. We thought that the legal issues were very clear, and the judge agreed with us that school districts don't have authority to put forward a patchwork of different vaccine mandates. They can't contradict with state law. We are really happy with the decision, and we're glad that all students are going to be able to remain in class.
The San Diego School District said in a statement that it is determined to maintain the vaccine mandate and voted unanimously to appeal. Let Them Choose says they are ready to defend their case in an appellate court.
We are completely confident. These legal issues were so clear, and we're absolutely confident that the appellate court will see it the same way. And again, if we prevail in the appellate court, then that will just set actual binding legal precedent statewide.
Judge Meyer says implementing vaccine mandates without religious or personal belief exemptions can only be imposed by the state legislature. He also said students are required to receive some vaccinations in order to attend in-person school, but adding COVID-19 to the list is also a policy only the state can impose. Per the court ruling, SDUSD for now cannot enforce a student vaccine mandate. Cynthia Kai, NTD News, California.
And in less than 2 weeks, proof of vaccination will be mandatory for all indoor dining in Philadelphia. So what do restaurant staff and diners have to say about the new rule? Let's take a look.
Starting January 3rd, Philadelphia's indoor dining mandate will go into effect. Proof of vaccinations will be required at all indoor restaurants and bars, as well as other places like sports venues and movie theaters. We asked people what they thought of this new rule.
I've been vaccinated, but I'm against the government telling me what to do and taking away our freedoms, especially our body, right?
I actually think it's a great idea to have a vaccine mandate for dining in because it provides a good incentive for people to actually get vaccinated.
Drew Young is the general manager of an Asian fusion restaurant in Old City. He saw the negative fallout of this mandate.
My opinion is it's pretty invasive. Over the past few weeks, we've seen that people who are fully vaccinated with booster shots have been catching COVID, getting seriously ill from it, and just making a mandate that pretty much you can't go anywhere without a vaccination, I think is pretty extreme.
Young said his restaurant had closed for a full year amid the pandemic. When it finally reopened, COVID restrictions again pushed customers away.
They hit us with different mandates every other month, and now we have to wait for January 3rd to have even less business inside. So gradually, business has just declined. Anytime you think it's going to get better, they come out with another mandate and make it hard for us.
Inside a food court near the city's historic landmark, the Liberty Bell, a dessert store manager said business is still hurting.
This is a touristy spot, so people who come here are tourists. So just strict travel guidelines, and if they don't follow it, they can't even go off the plane. So people can't come and visit places like this, and then that impacts us because they're our main customers. So.
Under the new mandate, patrons must show their vaccination card or a photo of it when dining indoors. Establishments failing to comply could face fines of up to $2,000 per day. NTD News, Philadelphia.
And over 20 states are filing lawsuits to block COVID-19 mandates. This affects hundreds of thousands in preschools. In another development, agencies find out billions are missing from pandemic relief funds. NTD's Iris Tao has more.
Attorneys general from 24 states are suing the Biden administration for its COVID-19 mandates for early education staff and children. The states filed a 65-page lawsuit. It seeks to block Biden's mandate, requiring all staff working in the Head Start preschool program to be vaccinated, and all its children above 2 to wear a mask. The mandate has a January 31st deadline and affects hundreds of thousands of staff and students in the country's largest preschool program.
I was shocked at the Biden administration's latest attempt to mask 2-year-olds and force vaccinate preschool teachers.
The states call the mandate arbitrary and capricious. They warn that it will cause tens of thousands of staff to lose their jobs and further limit early education for low-income families. Also suing are dozens of service members. They're taking on the Biden administration and the Department of Defense for violating religious freedoms. In the case's latest development, the Epoch Times reports that the U.S. military has still not approved a single religious exemption for its vaccine mandates. That's out of roughly 12,000 requests in total, according to numbers released by different branches. Lawyers representing those suing say the military is violating the Constitution and the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. In another development, as businesses shuttered amid the pandemic, some criminals kept working. The U.S. Secret Service reveals that at a minimum, nearly $100 billion have been stolen from pandemic relief funds. These funds were set up to help businesses and people who lost their jobs during the pandemic. But apparently, some illegally dug into the pot. The Labor Department says these swindlers mostly committed unemployment fraud. It estimates that this type of fraud was linked to about $87 billion stolen. The Secret Service says it has more than 900 criminal investigations underway related to pandemic fraud. At least 100 people have been arrested. Iris Tao, NTD News.
And former Trump advisor Michael Flynn is suing the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th breach of the U.S. Capitol. He's seeking to block the panel from obtaining his phone records. Flynn is the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency and was former President Trump's national security advisor. Flynn alleges committee's subpoena is too broad in scope and punishes him for constitutionally protected speech he engaged in as a private citizen. He also alleges the congressional committee has no authority to conduct business because it's not a duly constituted select committee. The House committee has requested Flynn testify before the panel and that he hand over documents about an alleged command center at a Washington hotel. The committee alleges it was set up to lead efforts to deny Joe Biden the November 2020 election win. Flynn's lawsuit comes nearly a week after freelance photojournalist Amy Harris filed a lawsuit against the committee for the same reason. Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, also sued the committee for overreaching on subpoenas. The House January 6th committee is now trying to interview Republican Congressman Jim Jordan. He's a close ally of former President Trump. The committee says it wants Jordan to provide information about his communications with Trump on January 6th and Trump's challenges to the 2020 election. And a TV broadcaster operated by the Chinese regime has been paying millions of dollars to a radio station in Washington, D.C. In exchange, the radio channel has been broadcasting Chinese-made programs to American households, all the while listeners have reportedly been unaware Beijing controls much of what goes on air. NTD's Don Ma has more.
U.S. government filings showed that the Chinese regime is broadcasting propaganda to American households. Beijing has paid over $4 million to a radio station based in Washington, D.C. China's state-run broadcaster CGTN has been paying daytime radio station WCRW since 2019. The radio station broadcasts CGTN's content 12 hours each day in Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. An agreement signed this July shows that Beijing controls much of what goes on air. The documents were made public last week in a filing with the U.S. Justice Department. The agreement bars the radio station from altering or shortening CGTN's program content or inserting advertisements without permission. The contract is between WCRW and a bureau overseen by the Chinese regime's propaganda department. And CGTN is not the only Chinese state media that WCRW works with. WCRW says on its website that since the 1990s, it has also broadcast Chinese state-run radio, China Radio International. Don Ma, NTD News.
And still to come. Confirmation the NHL is pulling their players out of the Olympic Games for the second time in a row, citing a rise in COVID cases. Who will represent Team USA instead? And New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio confirming that New Year's Eve celebration at Times Square will take place as scheduled. That and more here on NTD News. The New Year's Eve celebration at New York's Times Square will go ahead as scheduled. But Mayor Bill de Blasio says the city is working with health officials on additional safety measures amid rising virus cases.
So in working with the sponsors of the event, working with our healthcare leaders, right now, two great virtues, all vaccinated audience and outdoors. We're looking to add additional measures to make it even safer. So we're still in discussion. The goal, of course, is to keep it going because it's such an important event for New Yorkers and for the whole world.
De Blasio didn't give any additional details on the measures, but he did say no more shutdowns. He said they aren't needed this year because the city is more prepared. Earlier this month, de Blasio announced a vaccine mandate for all private sector employees in the city. That's set to take effect next week. And Christmas is coming fast. And in New York City, the community surprised students at a Brooklyn middle school with hundreds of toys. NTD's Chenny Wu was at the event.
Students were in for a surprise here in Brooklyn's Stephen Decatur Middle School. A local business owner, a New York City Council member, and NYPD officers teamed up to surprise students in need with hundreds of holiday toys.
We are very grateful that you have donated all these stuff to us and for blessing our school community with all these gifts.
Local business owner Salvatore Style provided hundreds of toys for the students, and he told us why. It was to honor his father who passed away from COVID last year, who went to the school back in 1949.
My father always told me how much he loved this school.
Style also announced he's collaborating with the school to set up a scholarship fund. He spoke about the importance of education and also shared a few words of wisdom his father passed on to him.
If he was here today, he would want you to know that it's very important to have a sense of family, community, and respect of yourself. So never lose your reputation. That's something that you have to keep the entirety of your whole life.
He finished by saying that Christmas isn't about getting, but about giving. Also at the event, NYPD officers were helping hand out the toys. Executive Officer Jason Cortez said it's very rewarding to support the community.
We take great pleasure in it. This is what the NYPD is all about. This is what we represent. We give back to the community, we protect the community, and we want to keep our community safe for the holiday season.
Wishing everyone happy holidays. Chenny Wu, NTD News, New York.
And New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio has just signed a bill that prohibits any newly constructed buildings from having gas lines, with few exceptions. The law is the first of its kind for a large, cold weather city, and the city says it will help address the climate crisis. NTD's Jason Perry spoke with an energy and environmental expert to see what's at stake.
All newly constructed residential and commercial buildings in New York City will no longer be allowed to have natural gas lines. The mandate will have exemptions for certain uses, such as commercial kitchens and emergency or standby power. According to research by the Rocky Mountain Institute, the law will prevent over 2 million tons of carbon emissions by 2040, equivalent to taking 450,000 cars off the road for a year.
We are convinced this is going to have a major impact. Right here in this city, reducing emissions, improving health, because less pollution equals better health, but also setting an example that other cities, states, nations will follow. When New York City does something, it is felt all over the world. So all new buildings will be electric by 2027.
Residents of these all-electric buildings will have to use electric heating, which is generally more expensive than gas heating. Frank Lissay is the president of Truth in Energy and Climate, an organization dedicated to energy and climate issues. He said the city's shift towards electricity coincides with the Biden administration's push to move away from fossil fuels, which can have unexpected consequences.
Really interesting because at the same time they're doing this, they're closing down reliable coal plants,
They plan to close down a nuclear plant. They just closed down other plants, and they have this weird concept that they can run their electric grid, their electric system, on wind and solar. And why I say that's weird is most people don't understand that both wind and solar produce very little energy or no energy 70% of the time.
De Blasio also said every public vehicle in New York City will eventually be electric, whether it's a school bus, a police vehicle, or the cars driven by city officials. But Lassay explained that electric vehicles can also have a negative impact on the environment.
And we could get into the fact that they have to, 80% of the batteries for cars, electric vehicles, are made in China, burning dirty coal, and they control 80% of the rare earth inputs into those vehicles. And poor kids are mining cobalt in the Congo with really bad environment for them and for the earth. If you really cared about earth, we would be cleaning up those sort of things. So electric vehicles in the short term actually harm the earth. It takes 7 or 8 years for a electric vehicle to equal the amount of carbon dioxide it took to mine, process, and manufacture it.
Jason Perry, NTD News.
And the NHL is officially withdrawing its players from the 2022 Winter Olympics. The league made the announcement today, citing a rise in COVID cases. The decision was widely anticipated after an anonymous source close to the matter said yesterday the league won't participate. But the NHL has already postponed 50 games so far this season, including 32 this week. NTD's Dave Martin has more.
The NHL's withdrawal is the second straight time the league has pulled its players from the Winter Games. 4 years ago, it was widely reported that the league and the IOC couldn't agree on who would pay for insurance, among other associated costs. This time, concerns that a positive test in China could result in a 21-day quarantine had some players and coaches concerned.
I just put myself in that situation with the family and this and that. There's zero chance that you'd want to run the risk of being stuck over there.
NHL players, meanwhile, haven't participated in the Olympics since 2014 and won't have the opportunity again now until 2026. They've had to balance the excitement and opportunity of representing their country with the threat of being stuck overseas.
Being able to be stuck over there with the whole quarantine situation, but at the end of the day, you always, if you have a chance to represent your country, it's always a big honor and you want to do that. But at the same time, there's a lot on stake.
USA Hockey's John Van Beesbrook had previously said that Team USA's roster would be filled with players from the American Hockey League, the European League, and the NCAA in case the NHL pulled out of the Olympics. Dave Martin, NTD News, New York.
And still to come, a former U.S. Navy sailor is headed to prison for 30 months. It's because she, with the help of her husband, secretly sold sensitive U.S. military equipment to China for their own profit. And Beijing further clamping down on religious content and activities. Organizations are not allowed to circulate information on religious ceremonies without authorities' approval. That and more here on NTD News.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Oh, hey, doesn't it feel like there's communists everywhere? In fact, the Chinese Communist Party has been subverting America from every angle. So whether it's compromising our politicians, controlling Hollywood, manipulating Wall Street, or infiltrating our schools, they have stopped at nothing to take down America. And I believe that in order for us to not become like China, we need citizens who know the truth. So go on over to getepic.com, stay informed with a subscription to the Epic Times, and you will get instant access to this infographic.
A former U.S. Navy sailor is headed to prison. That's because she secretly sold sensitive U.S. military equipment to China. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
A former U.S. Navy sailor is headed to prison for 30 months. That's because she, with the help of her husband, secretly sold sensitive U.S. military equipment to China for their own profit. According to a Justice Department statement on Tuesday, 37-year-old Ivy Wang is a naturalized U.S. citizen from China. She admitted to having used her official position as a logistics specialist to buy military gear. Her husband then sold the equipment to online buyers in China. In one case in 2018, Wang used her military email to order a device for identifying United States military personnel in the field. She later told her command she ordered the piece of gear for her husband's camping trip. Wang also repeatedly tried to obtain top security clearance. Navy officers were alarmed to learn that she was compiling a list of the Navy's personnel records. The information she obtained, including service members' names and addresses. Wang isn't the only offender. Last November, a Chinese-American engineer who worked for a major U.S. defense contractor was sentenced to 38 months in prison. That's because he traveled to China, bringing information related to a missile guidance system with him. That's in violation of U.S. export control law. And this July, a Chinese national was sentenced to over 3 years behind bars after the person tried to illegally export engines and maritime raiding craft, or small fast boats used for patrols, to China. In a speech last September, FBI Director Christopher Wray said the Bureau was opening one new Chinese counterintelligence investigation about every 10 hours. Some local authorities in China have banned Christmas celebrations this year, citing the COVID-19 or CCP virus pandemic. Leading up to Christmas, it's hard for people in China to feel the holiday spirit, either online or in real life. Local authorities in some eastern and southern provinces banned all religious activities on Christmas. Insiders told U.S.-based outlet Radio Free Asia that local public security bureaus asked churches not to host any religious gatherings during Christmas. They said it was to prevent the spread of the virus. A county in eastern China's Zhejiang province let restaurants and movie theaters stay open, but shut down churches. Some are questioning whether the local authorities are targeting religious activities. Netizens on Chinese social media Weibo are also having a hard time finding pictures of Christmas celebrations this year. They say they only found pictures from previous years.
And residents in a city in central China are facing another, even stricter lockdown. Reported virus cases are rising there, but this time, some people have been spotted trying to evade the harsh control measures. Let's take a look.
The Chinese city of Xi'an is under strict pandemic control measures. Normally, the city is home to rich culture and serves as a hot spot for tourism. It's known as the resting place of China's famed terracotta warriors. But now, over 13 million residents there have been ordered to stay inside as authorities cope with the new CCP virus outbreak, the infection that causes COVID-19. Some have been spotted crying inside their locked homes at night, while groups of students scale iron fences to escape school lockdowns. The city has reported nearly 150 virus cases since early December. Though NTD cannot verify this data, China has a history of lacking transparency in its pandemic updates. In some cases, officials may underreport cases to avoid being removed from office. something done to keep up positive appearances and boost China's reputation. Xi'an officials announced new restrictions on Wednesday. According to the rules, one person per household is allowed to leave the home for essential shopping like groceries. That's allowed just once every 2 days. What's more, travel within the city has become difficult, as authorities have set up roadblocks. On top of that, local regulation mandates that anyone wishing to leave the city must first get approval from authorities. Video shows people getting stopped to show proof of permission at a train station.
To leave via North Station, proof from your company is not useful. You have to go through the official approval process and get a proof seal from authorities, or else you are not allowed to leave. Negative virus test proof is useless.
As for those traveling in other regions of China, if they're coming from places that are neighboring Xi'an or from cities in the same general direction, authorities impose mandatory quarantine stays.
Anyone coming from the direction of Xi'an will have to be locked inside for 14 days at a quarantine point at their own expense, regardless of what proof they have, whether it's a virus test report or their travel history code. They don't count.
According to reports from Chinese state media, the state had already closed indoor public facilities last week. At the same time, a clip captured near a school campus is raising concerns. It shows at least 11 ambulances entering and leaving the campus, while the person who filmed the clip said that emergency vehicles had muted their sirens.
And Boeing's 777s can now head back to the skies as the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, recommend they resume flights as long as new inspections and modifications happen. The jets are equipped with the same type of engine that exploded on a United Airlines flight earlier in 2021. In February, the National Transportation Safety Board said the failure of fan blades on the right engine caused it to rain debris on neighborhoods as it returned to the airport. The FAA's proposal includes enhanced engine fan blade inspection. The new inspections impact 128 Boeing 777s worldwide. 54 are here in America. United Airlines is the only U.S. operator affected. Boeing and United Airlines have not yet made a comment about the recommendations. And Elon Musk recently said he's sold enough Tesla stock to reach his liquidation goal. He also criticized California for overtaxation. It's after moving his company's headquarters to Texas. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk said he sold enough stock to hit his goal of liquidating 10% of his Tesla stake. During an interview released on December 21st with the satirical and parody website Babylon Bee, Musk said California used to be the land of opportunity.
Becoming more so the land of sort of over-regulation, over-litigation, over-taxation.
When asked whether he sold the stock because of a November Twitter poll, the entrepreneur said he needed to exercise stock options that are expiring. As of Tuesday, he sold 13.5 million shares, about 8 million of which were to pay taxes. Locals in Silicon Valley shared their comments.
Although I'm in favor of taxing the rich, there has to be a limit, because if you tax the rich too much, they'll move to another country or another state. And then you lose out on all the tax revenue.
So you pay the environment, plus we have a clean environment here. So yeah, I don't mind paying more tax so I can live in a higher standard environment.
We've got a benefit of that. So that way I'd say maybe the tax a little high, but we pay for paradise here. So
Musk said on Sunday that he will pay over $11 billion in taxes this year. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
And more companies are offering to pay their workers in cryptocurrency. Apparently, some workers actually prefer to get paid in crypto in one form or another. So what are the pros and what are the cons? NTD's Phil Zoe has the details.
When it comes to salary, cryptocurrency is becoming a hot topic for both workers and employers.
Paying in crypto is something that we're seeing more and more requests of.
It's a big opportunity to incentivize new employees and retain existing employees.
We anticipate in the coming year, we're going to pay nearly all of our bills in cryptocurrency.
Next year, we'll see a huge swing towards crypto compensation and just crypto usage
as a whole.
The CEO of Gallon Token says wire transfers were becoming a headache. He started using crypto to pay some of his workers overseas.
It's easy, it's instant, it's secure, and it's visible.
The CEO of Sarsen Funds agrees. He says many vendors are requesting to get paid in crypto.
Within 10 minutes of them requesting it, and they don't have to go to the bank. It's already in their crypto wallets, which is where they want it, and that's where we have it. So we're very much cutting out the bank, and we don't really kind of miss going to the bank.
Alex Carabray works at Presearch, a search engine powered by blockchain technology. He's actually getting paid 100% in crypto.
Younger people will increasingly want to be compensated in crypto, especially ones who have a risk appetite for the volatility that comes with crypto.
But there are downsides to a crypto salary.
It's a little bit more cumbersome, especially if you haven't dealt with crypto in the past, to exchange it to a form of currency that you can use every day to buy a can of soda or to buy groceries or to pay for your rent.
Workers need to report their crypto income in detail to the IRS, which can get messy if you're not organized.
People don't understand what is at stake whenever you're getting paid in crypto and how you report that on your taxes.
Also, the price of crypto constantly changes up and down.
The sword can cut both ways. It could go up and then you make more money in value. If it goes down in value, then it has an impact on your overall income.
Phil Zhou, NTD News.
And an exhibition in London dives into the vast Port of London Authority collection to reveal the humbling scale of the international port fully for the first time. London, port city, charts its life since the final days of the 18th century. We've got more from NTD's Neil Woodrow.
The Port of London was once the largest in the world. The Museum of London Docklands exhibition highlights its importance for the people, culture and the country's position in the world for over 200 years to the present day. This new exhibition, in partnership with the Port of London Authority, or PLA, reveals the ongoing influence of the port on the capital city and explores complex operations that have enabled the port to connect London to the rest of the world. Alistair Gale from the PLA tells us the City of London and the port are intrinsically linked.
The city really grew from the port. It was basically the place where you could ford the river, cross the river and bring stuff ashore. And from that slowly grew the world's biggest port with enclosed docks that everybody would recognise. And in fact, the enclosed docks are one of the few things you can actually see in satellite images from space. They're so large. But over time, the ships grew larger and they needed deeper water, so they went further downriver.
The next area of the exhibition expands on the Thames area's diversity.
So this is one of my favourite parts of the exhibition. This is where it's a properly immersive experience because you can sit in this little theatre and effectively immerse yourself in all of the different uses of the Thames today.
Gale says people are really engaging with the area.
The tidal Thames, which runs from Teddington Lock all the way out to the North Sea, and over those 95 miles, you effectively have a river which is a bit of a playground, which goes from Teddington Lock to Putney, where people are doing rowing, sailing. Stand-up paddleboarding has grown really hugely in its popularity in the last little while. And then through central London, with the only world city that has 4 UN World Heritage Sites on the banks of its river.
Stories help to bring the experience to life. Gale says when he first came into the exhibition, this image struck him as emblematic of how important seafarers have been. He says many thousands of seafarers have worked far, far longer shifts on the ships in the past months to ensure that all of us receive the food, fuel and medicines needed through the pandemic.
So it was really striking coming into the exhibition to find an image of seafarers being cared for going back into the 1800s. So it's very much a tradition in London that the seafarers' contribution is valued and that we look after them when they come to London doing their essential job.
In the image, they are waiting for medical assessment. The port and its activities have influenced the language we use and also place names. The DLR station called Mudchute is named after dredged mud taken from Millwall Dock and dumped via a mudchute.
the name posh as a description for people. It's actually believed to be linked to the noting that went on people's tickets, which was put for port out, starboard home, and basically ensured that those passengers had the nicest cabins because they wouldn't be so hot in the middle of the day.
Gail says the exhibition gives people a chance to experience the sights, sound and even the smells of the Port of London.
And this last area that we're at, which has some boxes, literally you can lift the lid and you can smell the aroma of the historic port. Some of them are nicer, some of them are not so nice. So if you get the spices, then you'll be okay. If you're looking at smelling the hides and the fish, it's not quite as pleasant, but it's all part of life.
The exhibition runs until the 8th of May. It's fascinating to understand London as a port city and the vital role it plays. Neil Woodrow, NTD News, London.
And still to come, stunning footage of a naturally formed ice cave in the Swiss Alps. We'll tell you how natural forces create it. And getting your hands on some holiday-inspired sweets this year might be trickier than normal. Candy cane makers are having a hard time keeping up with surging demand as labor shortages, supply chain holdups, and rising sugar costs present new challenges. Find out more in just a minute.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but millions of you out there. Before all this started, I had already written in my memoir, I dedicate this book to anyone that's looking for hope. Well, right now, we're all looking for hope. I believe that my story is going to bring inspiration and hope to everyone. By the time you're done reading my book, you will believe that with God, all things are possible. To thank you all for your support, I'm offering some of my best prices ever on MyPillow products, including this exclusive bundle. You get my book and these 5 MyPillows. They all have beautiful scenes and verses from the Bible, such as Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, for I am with you. This 6-pack bundle is regularly $219. Now it's just $99.98 and free shipping with your promo code. Go to mypillow.com and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below. Thank you and God bless.
Christmas is magical almost everywhere. But in New York, it can transform the atmosphere of an entire city. NTD's Arian Pastar has some tips on how to enjoy the city during the holidays.
Christmas food or pretty decorations, it doesn't matter what you like. New York City has got you covered. Here are some of the best things you can do this weekend.
So far, Lego store and Nintendo store.
Saks has beautiful lights, so after dark, people should go to Fifth Avenue, Saks up by the tree.
Right in the heart of the city, you can see the Winter Village at Bryant Park. Visitors can have fun on the ice skate rink or just see the holiday shops while having some hot chocolate and other treats. The location is great too, as it's very close to Times Square and surrounded by iconic New York City skyscrapers. From there, it's just a 10-minute walk to Rockefeller Center, which is where the next 2 attractions await you. Of course, the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center is a must-see. And right next to it, there's the light show at Saks Fifth Avenue. The show repeats itself every 10 minutes from 5 to 11 p.m. To end the night, you can go see one of New York's Christmas performances like the Nutcracker Ballet at the Lincoln Center on the Upper West Side or A Christmas Carol on Broadway. The weather here in the city is expected to be rather warm this weekend with highs in the 50s every day. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
And candy cane, sugar plums, gingerbread galore. Christmas time is the season of the sweet tooth. And as festive celebrations commence, cravings for a sugar fix often run wild. But this year, satisfying that hunger might get a little tricky. That's as confectioners battle to keep up production. Here's more.
For Andrew Schumann's Candy Cane Company, business has been anything but sweet this year.
We have had to turn away business this year. I wouldn't say that it is 30% of the overall business, but we certainly probably had to turn away 10% of the business.
Even though orders are pouring in, the Denver, Colorado candy maker is struggling to match demand. Just like farmers and retailers, the pandemic slammed candy confectioners with skyrocketing commodity prices, labor shortages, and transportation and supply chain snarls. Those roadblocks are stopping them from fully cashing in on the holiday season. The problem is becoming especially dire for Hammond's, the largest U.S. wholesale supplier of handmade candy canes.
So Hammond sells candy canes to thousands of retailers across the country, from your local candy store to your furniture store to your hardware store to some of the larger stores that we know of.
The company has twisted and packed up the classic Christmas treat for more than a century, supplying major chains like Target, Cracker Barrel, and Cost Plus World Market. The company is paying out 30% more for labor this year, but its 250-person crew is down nearly 100 people. Schumann adds that long-term employees are clocking in for overtime weekly.
It's been really hard hiring workers this year. In fact, this has probably been, in the 15 years that I've been involved with Hammond's, the hardest that it's been to hire workers. Not only was it hard to hire them, the wages have kept creeping up as well. And so it's been really competitive out on the marketplace just with the lack of labor force. And so it's been a little bit of a bottleneck for us.
On the other hand, the National Confectioners Association reports that sales for sweets like candy canes and other non-chocolate goodies are up more than 34% from 2020.
It's been strong. It's been strong since last October. Our business has just been on fire. I don't know how to explain it, and I hope it doesn't stop because it's good for the people who are buying the candy and taste it and get that yummy feeling, and it's great for our employees and for the business.
Supply chain snarls have affected Hammond's ability to source displays and tin packaging materials from China. But besides the decorative wrappings, the main ingredient is becoming harder to come by too. Sugar prices have hit a decade high. Hurricane Ida destroyed much of the nation's sugarcane crop this year, while overseas nations like Brazil and Thailand harvested smaller yields than expected. That's on top of soaring freight prices, making imports costly.
We're trying to adjust our prices or adjust our ounce sizes to combat it, but there's only so much a person's going to pay for a gourmet candy cane, so we're just going to have to eat some of that as a company and just become more efficient.
Despite the challenges, Hammond's and other holiday treat makers are still going full steam ahead, working to stock shelves and bring a little extra sweetness to your season.
And if you want to see one of the world's most beautiful Christmas trees, you'll have to travel to Ukraine. The tree is located in Sofia Square in the capital city of Kiev.
Thousands of lights shine in a Yuletide display. It's the official lighting of Ukraine's national Christmas tree. The mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, was there for the opening of the tree lighting festivities.
It will be one of the top 3 best Christmas trees in Europe and the world. We've worked hard to make this happen, and it will give each of us, everyone who came to light the Christmas tree, positive emotions and feelings of celebration.
The tree is about 100 feet tall, and it's decorated with over 6 miles of garlands and 10,000 ornaments.
I really like the Christmas tree because there is a very big, beautiful star on top. Very good. We are entering the new year, and may we make the new year as happy as our Christmas tree. It was cool how it lit up. It's just amazing.
This is my first time in Kyiv, and I got to see the Christmas tree. I'm impressed. It's very enchanting, majestic. I really like it.
This year's theme for the holiday festivities is the Nativity. Under the Christmas tree is a scene depicting the birth of Jesus, along with gift-bearing kings, angels, and carolers. It's one of the largest nativity scenes in Europe. And the Christmas season in Kyiv has a familiar ring to it. There is hot cider, close friends, decorations, ice skating, and of course, a choir singing a song of Ukrainian origin, Carol of the Bells.
And finally, an ice cave which forms naturally on a high-altitude glacier in the Swiss Alps brought delight to nature lovers and photographers. Let's take a look.
The bluish cave has a rounded ceiling made of thick ice about 16 feet high and is about 65 feet long. The shape of the cave varies each year. Organizers said the tunnel is accessible by foot in 15 minutes from the chairlift above the Le Diablerie ski resort, but at your own risk.
It's amazing to see all this ice, the glacier open. Yeah, it's amazing. It's just to feel how small you are in this cave, in this environment. That's amazing. Yeah.
The natural cave, also known as the mill, forms through a siphon effect. Each spring and summer, the cavity fills with water from the snowmelt, forming a lake. In autumn, the plug disappears and the water drains, leaving the cave.
That's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow night.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selected videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.